Hello. In the previous lectures, we discussed about composite porous channels, where we have a partially filled porous coating and then partially filled free flow and then coupling conditions. And also we discussed about a recent interface condition, that is called stress jump condition, and its role. So, in the previous lectures we discussed mostly rectangular geometries of the composite channels. So, while these have applications, for example, one of the important application is flow inside glycocalyx, endothelium and glycocalyx, etc. So, what is a endothelium? These are the vessels where, so there is a lumen inside and then a porous layer. So, typically they are varying cross section, but the best initial approximations are, for example, cylindrical, completely regular circular shape cylindrical, and then suppose somebody would like to further study planar cross sections. So, then one would go for rectangular. So, in that sense, the previous lecture we discussed about composite porous channels. So, in this lecture we are going to discuss about more improved model like cylindrical composite porous channel. Okay. So, you will see this has lot of applications, because viscous drops in pipes. So, they also has a similar configuration. Then migration of blood cells inside microvessels and gas bubble inside channels. So, these are all examples of where one can model transport of microparticles passing through pipe. Okay. But it is not very obvious to model these. You will see why at the end of this lecture. So, to start with, we are not considering any microparticle. So, we just consider a composite pipe and then try to discuss. Okay. So, for example, one of the application is blood transport inside capillaries. Okay. Typically, if somebody would like to model this, they have to consider various parameters. For example, one has to treat blood as a suspension of red blood cells, white blood cells, which are leukocytes. Then if you see, the common literature tells that blood is considered as a non-Newtonian, okay, but plasma is incompressible Newtonian. Okay. And you will ask a question, so whether we have to model as a non-Newtonian or Newtonian. So, typically in the capillaries it can be approximated as a Newtonian. Okay. So, before we model particle migration, we would like to focus on capillary flow kind of. Okay. So, when you say blood transport, what are these leukocytes and what could be the order of their size, so that they pass through within the lumen. If you see, minimum diameter of a cylindrical tube that permits a normal red blood cell to pass through it intact is 2.8 micron. Then leukocytes are generally spherical with a mean diameter of 6 to 8 microns. Okay. So, this is a so keeping sphericity minimum is this. So, they allow little larger range. So, this is the application I was referring, flow inside vascular endothelium. So, if you see, so these are the porous coating and this is the lumen. Okay. So, this is the vasculature and then these are endothelial cells. Okay. So, these are completely deformable porous. Okay. But throughout these lectures we are considering porous media as a rigid matrix. Okay. So, what is here shown is lumen and a glycocalyx. What is glycocalyx? Layer of membrane bound macromolecules and adsorbed plasma proteins, which are this is the coating, porous coating, cylindrical configuration. So, we would like to approximate this. as I indicated. So, approximation to flow inside vascular endothelium. So, you have a cylindrical configuration, this is the porous coating and then this is the lumen. Okay. So, if you see one cross section view, so the outer one is of radius capital R and then inner one is of radius lambda r. So, lambda is constant. So, we can control the layer thickness with the parameter lambda. Okay. So, within the fluid region we have Stokes equations. So, this is equation of continuity and momentum equation as usual. So, mu is the dynamic viscosity of the fluid. So, this is the inner region. Then in the annulus region, which is the porous region, so we have again equation of continuity, then we have Brinkman equation with so there should not be so with the pressure forces and then the corresponding effective viscosity and then Darcy the damping term. Okay. So, this is the Brinkman equation. Okay. So, this dot should not be there, gradient. So, then assumptions and simplified form. So, we are assuming unidirectional. Okay. So, therefore, flow is fluid flow and then correspondingly porous flow like this with the corresponding superscripts. Then we assume flow is axisymmetric. Okay. So, correspondingly we have seen earlier. So, due to axisymmetry and unidirectional, from conservation of mass we get the velocity is function of r alone. Okay. And the corresponding momentum equations. So, these two indicates the pressure is function of z and we have z momentum equation. Okay. So, this is already I have indicated. So, similar thing one can have in the porous region. So, equation of continuity indicates this, then r and theta z components. So, here we have the corresponding permeability playing additional resistance and then we have effective viscosity. As usual for the current study we assume that effective viscosity is equals to viscosity. So, now before proceeding we have to fix the interface conditions. So, here I would like to mention, so even though in the previous lectures we have introduced the so called stress jump condition, it is just to make you understand that recent developments etc. But for simple cases and then for keeping the algebra simple, one can consider continuity of stresses, so that the algebra is simple. So, those who are interested to see the impact of stress jump coefficient, one can always take the corresponding stress jump condition and then analyze the results. Okay. So, otherwise we are restricting to continuity of tangential stress okay, in this problem. Okay. So, simplified form of governing equations, we have the corresponding z momentum equation in fluid region and the corresponding z momentum equation in the porous region. Okay. So, the assumption is pressure is same okay, in both the regions. Now, boundary conditions. So, the outer wall is impermeable, therefore, the porous velocity is 0, no slip. Then a regularity condition at r equal to 0, therefore, u f is finite at r equal to 0. Okay. Now, interface conditions. So, as I indicated, we used continuity of stress and velocity. So, therefore, at the interface you have continuity of velocity and continuity of stress, okay. But we assume effective viscosity equals to viscosity. So, the mean velocity is defined by this because the fluid is ranging from 0 to lambda r and then porous is lambda r to r and the corresponding area averaging we are doing. Okay. So, then we introduce non-dimensionalization. There is the radius of the tube is used for non-dimensionalizing the length scales for both R and Z as well. And once we non-dimensionalize, so pressure is also, as I indicated, both are equals to constant. So, then non-dimensionalized momentum equation in fluid region and in the porous region. So, we have seen in the previous lectures, this is the damping term due to the permeability, which is alpha square is 1 over Darcy number, where Darcy number is this. Okay. So, if permeability is small, Darcy number is small. If permeability is large, Darcy number is large. Okay. So, non-dimensionalized boundary conditions and interface conditions. So, we have seen for the clear flow solution. So, similar using similar method, one can easily compute the solution. So, this is the expression for the mean velocity. So, now if we find the general solution, fluid region we get this, and the porous region we get this, where these are the modified Bessel functions. Okay. So, now we have regularity condition, therefore, in the lumen we have regularity condition at r equal to 0. So, therefore, we expect that this will be 0. So, correspondingly, if we use the boundary conditions and interface conditions, we get the corresponding solution, and the volume flux balance can be used to get the pressure. Okay. So, solution is obtained. So, then now we use Maple or Matlab to plot this. Okay. So, you see we have shown with some nice editing, so that you understand better. So, we are showing only the symmetry. So, for the porous portion, we have fixed a specific lambda. Okay. So, it is lumen is up to 0.5, and then from 0.5 to 1 you have porous. Okay. So, as you can see in the figure A, for a different Darcy number we are showing these curves, and the direction is given. So, it is increasing from 10 power minus 3 to 1. So, let us consider 10 power minus 3, that means the Darcy number is very low. So, since the permeability is very low, you expect very less velocities, because a very small amount of fluid can percolate into this region. But you can see the total volume flux is balanced. So, therefore, whatever is lost here, lost in the sense because it is very minimal, that has to be adjusted in the free flow region. So, that is why the velocities are more here. Okay. Now, suppose you increase the Darcy number slightly. So, then the velocity in the porous region is increased, and correspondingly in the fluid region it is reduced. Further, if you, so that is what we are getting. Then this is almost large Darcy. Okay. So, almost this is the limit of fully clear flow region. So, the total volume flux is getting adjusted like this, therefore, the velocity is adjusted like this. Okay. So, this is indicating what kind of protein structure in the glycocalyx. So, corresponding to the protein structure, we can estimate the permeability range, and depending on the permeability range, we can get the corresponding Darcy number, and then we can study what kind of volume flux is getting accumulated within the porous layer. And if there are high volume flux, then one can analyze what kind of tissue deformation happens. Of course, this is approximate model with rigid porous matrix, but in case of deformed porous matrix, these kind of estimates can be obtained. Okay. So, this gives some correlation with the tissue lining and then the corresponding velocity profiles, etcetera. So, for example, if somebody has to estimate some drug and then the corresponding velocity to be controlled. Okay. So, then we have to study the glycocalyx parameters like its rigidity and then permeability, etcetera, and then correspondingly one can get some estimate on the velocity of the drug. So, these are some applications. So, now let us see the limiting case. As always, to validate one has to show some limiting cases. So, this is for a large Darcy number, one lambda 1, okay. That means a fully clear flow. So, it is agreeing with the clear flow channel. Okay. So, this is a Hagen-Poiseuille flow. So, that is the inference we are making. Increasing Darcy number increases the velocity inside the porous coating. Okay. And opposite behavior is observed in the fluid region to retain constant volume flux. What I meant? Increasing Darcy number increases the velocity in the porous region, opposite behavior is observed in the fluid region, because for this it is more increasing Darcy number, velocity is reduced in the fluid region. That is what we meant. Then for lambda 1, velocity is in line with the Hagen-Poiseuille flow. So, this is what we have seen. Okay. So, this is an approximation to investigate particle migration in a capillary. Okay. So, in order to get some understanding about similar problem, we are going to discuss now some discussion about how one can model particle migration in a pipe. Okay. So, the corresponding algebra is little involved. So, it cannot be just done in a lecture. So, but the concept can be explained and what are the difficulties involved in modeling this. Okay. So, we are interested in particle migration. So, consider a capillary, okay, or tube. So, we fix R, okay, R and Z. Now, we are interested in modeling particle migration, right. So, you take a sphere. So, if you consider sphere, in order to satisfy boundary condition on the sphere, we require spherical coordinate system to handle the sphere. Okay. So, which means if you take any point with respect to spherical coordinate system, this is the point, whereas with respect to this cylinder, this is z axis and then this is r axis. Okay. So, that means there is a interaction of the coordinate system. Okay. So, it is very straightforward. If somebody is concentrating on boundary conditions, suppose you are in a rectangular system. So, then we can reach planes. Okay. Suppose you are in cylindrical coordinate system, then we can reach the corresponding surface with r equal to constant and then x with z equal to constant planes. Okay. So, if you want to represent say sphere surface r equal to constant using Cartesian, so it will be difficult. Okay. So, that is what. So, depending on the problem, we have to fix the corresponding coordinate system. Okay. So, depending on the physical configuration. So, here the difficulty is you have a spherical particle. So, where you have to handle the spherical coordinate system, but you have a cylinder. So, you have to use a cylindrical coordinate system, but then sphere is traveling inside a tube. So, therefore, you have a interaction of the coordinate system. So, how this can be handled. So, that is the task. Okay. So, as I indicated, tube is cylindrical coordinate system and a particle, that is a sphere, is spherical coordinate system, but considering Stokes flow, which is linear, the equations are linear. So, one can use some superposition principle. So, what we do is we consider axis symmetry and introduce stream function. Okay. Then once we introduce stream function, the total stream function is decomposed into two parts, where this takes wall effects into account and this takes sphere effects. That means, we are trying to solve for psi w using cylindrical coordinate systems in the absence of sphere. Okay. So, just like assuming axis symmetry, of course, we are assuming axis symmetry. So, then we can introduce stream function. So, once we introduce stream function, we are considering psi w in the absence of sphere, just a pipe flow satisfying no slip. Okay. So, wall effects means no sphere, okay, then no slip on r equals to a. So, this is corresponding to psi w, and a sphere, what we are considering is no wall, no slip on r equals to a. Okay. So, these two are independent problems. So, why we could do this and why this is justified? Because the problem is linear. Okay. So, this linearity is allowing us to do this superposition. So, we solve these two problems independently, then combine psi. Okay. So, that is psi w is solution for the flow inside circular tube with impermeable walls in the absence of sphere. So, then this can be a function of r z, then psi s will be solution, and then this will be function of r. So, here when I say no sphere, no slip on r equal to a, no wall, no slip on r equal to a. So, therefore, first compute the solution in sphere. So, so no sphere case will be psi w will be psi w of r z in cylindrical, and no wall means psi s will be psi s in r and theta, because axis symmetry for cylindrical is this and axis symmetry for spherical is this. Okay. So, we have computed without sphere. Okay. So, just this solution, but we have not yet forced it. Then without walls, just with sphere, we have computed this solution. So, once you compute, then the resultant psi will be of the following form: r z plus sphere r theta. Okay. But then what is the configuration we have? So, the configuration that we have is okay. So, for the combined, since individual we expect that, but we have to solve the impact of the particle. So, we do not enforce this on individual stream functions. Okay. We do not enforce no slip, we do not enforce no slip on the sphere on individual solutions. We compute the general solution, then superpose psi, then we have to force no slip and no slip. So, that means we are forcing no slip on psi, resultant psi. Okay. So, once you force this, we can determine the corresponding arbitrary coefficients involved in this. Okay. So, this is a very unique problem in that sense. There are alternate methods for this. For example, one can use say bipolar coordinate system, and then bipolar coordinate systems are separable in linear case. Okay. So, therefore, one can use, but we are exploiting the linearity structure of the problem and then getting two individual components, superpose and force the boundary conditions on the cylinder as well as the sphere on the combined stream function. Okay. So, this approach can be done. So, that is what I said, 0 velocity and 0 stress on the surface of the sphere, 0 velocity on the surface of the tube, and the complication is interaction of the coordinate systems. Okay. So, this similar technique is used by these authors in a different context. So, they were modeling porous sphere translating in a circular cylinder. Okay. So, they have used this. So, we thought we will just make you understand how particle migration can be modeled inside a tube. As I indicated, the algebra is very much involved, because you have to compute individual stream functions and then force the interface conditions. So, one can do it, but not because if you do it in a lecture, it will be very routine lengthy algebra. Okay. So, I am sure you get some idea about particle migration, and then overall how porous tubes and porous composite porous channels can be handled. Okay. So, maybe in the next lecture we discuss some applications, so that you get to know various situations where whatever we have learned so far can be applied. Okay. Thank you.